They call the Philippines the land of smiles. But what happens when you have no money, no power, no name, and the smile is the only thing left? This story begins on a lonely roadside in Leyte. The sun is high, the heat is cruel, dust hangs in the air like smoke. A foreign man stands still as cars rush past him. His name is Thomas. In another country, Thomas is someone people fear and admire. A British businessman, rich, influential, the kind of man whose signature can move millions. The kind of man who never waits for anything. But here, none of that matters. Right now, Thomas owns nothing. No phone, no wallet, no watch, no proof of who he is. He has been standing there for hours. His skin burns. His mouth is dry. His legs feel weak. His clothes are cheap, dirty, and torn at the edges. In his hands, he holds a small cardboard sign. The writing is uneven, written carefully in a local language he barely knows. One word: help. A bus passes without slowing down. A motorcycle speeds by. A clean black SUV drives past and throws dust all over him. The driver never looks back. Thomas watches the dust settle on his shirt and feels something heavy sink in his chest. Back home, people open doors for him. Here, people don't even see him. This was never supposed to feel like this, because Thomas didn't come to the Philippines as a victim. He came as a tester. Months earlier, after his father's death, Thomas found something strange among his old belongings. A worn-out notebook, pages yellow with age. Handwritten stories from the 1980s. They were about the Philippines. His father wrote about sleeping in villages, eating simple food, riding jeepneys with strangers. He wrote about people who had almost nothing, yet shared everything. He called it a different kind of wealth. Thomas didn't believe it. To him, the world had always been simple. People help when they gain something. Kindness has a price. Nobody gives without expecting a return. So he decided to prove his father wrong. He planned a quiet experiment. No cameras, no announcement, no safety net, at least not one anyone could see. Thomas flew to Tacloban. He locked away his cards and phone. He told his driver and assistants to stay away. He dressed like a man with no future. He wanted to know the truth. If he became nothing, would anyone still treat him like someone? The answer so far felt painfully clear. That morning he stood near a busy street. Office workers rushed past him. Tourists avoided eye contact. Vendors focused on customers with cash in their hands. A group of young people noticed him. They whispered. One of them secretly took a photo. They laughed and walked away. Later, Thomas asked a well-dressed man for a little money, just enough to buy water. The man pulled back. His face hardened. Without speaking, he waved his security guard forward. Thomas was pushed aside like a problem to be removed. Hour by hour, the sun climbed higher. By early afternoon, Thomas felt dizzy. His stomach hurt. His head throbbed. But worse than the hunger was the feeling of being invisible. In London, his words carried weight. Here, his presence meant nothing. Standing there holding that sign, Thomas felt something he had never felt before. Small. For the first time, doubt entered his mind. Maybe his father had imagined those stories. Maybe kindness only exists when life is easy. Maybe money really is the only language people understand. His fingers slipped into his pocket. There it was, his emergency phone. One call and the experiment would end. A car would arrive. Cold water, shade on safety. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then he heard it, a loud, uneven sound. Metal rattling, an engine coughing through age and effort. A jeepney, painted bright with bold colors, it slowed down and stopped right in front of him. On its hood were words painted with care. God bless our trip. The driver leaned out. He was an older man, thin but strong. His skin was dark from years under the sun. His smile was easy, not forced. His eyes looked tired, but kind. This was Mang Noli. Mang Noli had been driving jeepneys most of his life, every day, long hours. Not because he wanted more, but because his grandchildren needed to eat. Riced fish, just enough. That day he was already struggling. Fuel was low, money was short. Time was running out. Stopping for a passenger who couldn't pay made no sense. But Mang Noli stopped anyway. He looked at Thomas carefully. "Where are you going?" he asked. Thomas swallowed hard. His voice came out weak as he explained. He said he lost everything. He said he had no money. He said he didn't know where else to go. There was a short silence. Then Mang Noli smiled wider. He tapped the side of the jeepney and said something simple, "Get in." Thomas hesitated. He repeated that he couldn't pay. Mang Noli laughed softly. "Money is paper," he said. "A person is not." Thomas climbed into the jeepney, unsure of what he was feeling. Inside, the seats were old. The floor was scratched. Farmers sat quietly. Students held their bags close. No one complained when he sat down. No one moved away. An elderly woman beside him opened her basket and handed him a piece of boiled sweet potato. "Eat," she said gently. "You need strength." Thomas accepted it with both hands. As he ate, something inside him broke. Not in pain, but in realization. This wasn't part of the plan. The jeepney moved forward, rattling down the road. And for the first time since he arrived in Leyte, Thomas felt something he didn't expect at all. He didn't feel rich, he felt human. The jeepney moved slowly along the narrow road, its engine humming like it had done this journey 1,000 times before. Thomas sat quietly, holding the last piece of sweet potato in his hand. Outside, coconut trees swayed gently in the heat. Small houses passed by, wood, tin roofs, open doors. Children waved as the jeepney rolled past. No one asked Thomas questions. No one stared. For the first time all day, he wasn't treated like a problem. Mang Noli drove with one hand on the wheel and one elbow resting on the window. Every now and then he glanced in the mirror, making sure Thomas was okay. "Long day?" Mang Noli asked. Thomas nodded. He didn't trust his voice yet. As the ride continued, Mang Noli began to talk. Not loudly, not to impress anyone, but the way people talk when stories live inside them. He spoke about storms that destroyed homes, about nights when the rain came so hard the sea swallowed the land, about losing his house once, then building it again with neighbors who had also lost everything. "When one falls," Mang Noli said, eyes still on the road, "we all bend down to lift." The passengers nodded. This wasn't wisdom to them. It was normal life. Thomas listened, his mind spinning. Back home, people fought over profit. Here, people fought together against loss. The jeepney reached the last stop. Most passengers climbed down. The elderly woman smiled at Thomas before leaving. A student gave him a small bottle of water without saying a word. Soon only Thomas and Mang Noli remained. Mang Noli turned around and studied him more closely. "You don't look well," he said. "Come, eat first." Thomas was surprised. I don't want to trouble you." Mang Noli waved his hand. "No trouble, come." They walked a short distance to a small bamboo house raised slightly above the ground. It was simple, clean, warm, a place built with care, not money. Inside, a pot simmered over a small stove. Tinola. The smell of ginger and chicken filled the air. Mang Noli's grandchildren peeked from behind a doorway, curious but shy. His daughter smiled and quickly prepared plates. Thomas watched as food was served. The largest portion was placed in front of him. "No," Thomas said softly. "Please, I can take less." Mang Noli shook his head. "You need it more." As Thomas ate, the family sat around him, content with smaller portions. One of the children brought him a small electric fan, the only one in the house, and pointed it toward him. Thomas felt his chest tighten. In his world, generosity came with contracts. Here it came with silence. When the meal ended, the sun began to dip low, painting the sky orange and gold. Thomas sat outside the house with Mang Noli, watching the day slowly close. Thomas finally asked the question burning inside him. "Why did you help me?" he said. "You don't even know me." Mang Noli looked genuinely surprised. "Why not?" he replied. Thomas struggled to explain. He talked about money, about scarcity, about how helping strangers usually costs too much. Mang Noli listened patiently, then smiled. "In Leyte," he said, "we don't count what we have. We count who we help." The words landed heavy. At that moment, Thomas understood something clearly for the first time. His father hadn't been dreaming. He had been telling the truth. That night, Thomas barely slept. The small room was quiet. A fan hummed softly. Outside, insects sang their endless song. Thomas stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the day. The looks of people who ignored him, the dust from the passing SUV, the jeepney stopping, the sweet potato, the meal shared by a family with almost nothing. His experiment was over, but the lesson was only beginning. Early the next morning, the sound of engines filled the road. Not one, not two, but many. Black SUVs rolled into the village one after another, shiny, silent, out of place. Neighbors stepped outside, confused. Children stared wide-eyed. Mang Noli froze. His face drained of color. He turned to Thomas, fear in his eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" Thomas stepped forward. For the first time, he wasn't wearing the cheap clothes from the market. He stood tall in a clean, well-fitted suit. Behind him were assistants, drivers, people who spoke in quiet, serious tones. Mang Noli took a step back. Thomas walked straight to him. Then, to everyone's shock, Thomas bowed slightly and embraced him. "Thank you," Thomas said. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. "For saving me." Mang Noli didn't understand. Thomas turned to the gathered villagers and told them the truth. He explained who he really was, why he came, what he was testing. Silence filled the air. Then Thomas said something that no one expected. "The poor man here was never me," he said. "I was rich in money, but empty. This man," he gestured to Mang Noli, "is rich in something far greater." Mang Noli shook his head. "I only did what was right." Thomas smiled. "Exactly." That day, Thomas didn't just give Mang Noli a new jeepney, one that would never again leave him worrying about fuel or repairs. He did more. He created a foundation in Mang Noli's name, scholarships for every child in the village, a small health center so no one would have to travel far when sick, support for drivers like Mang Noli who carried the community on their wheels every day. There were no cameras, no loud speeches, just quiet gratitude. As the SUVs prepared to leave, Thomas looked back at the village, at the children waving, at Mang Noli standing tall, embarrassed by attention he never asked for. Later that day, as Thomas boarded his private jet, Leyte grew smaller beneath him. He thought about why he came. He thought he was testing kindness. Instead, kindness tested him. Thomas returned to London changed, not because he lost money, but because he found truth. And somewhere in Leyte, a jeepney still drives down dusty roads, carrying passengers, stories, and a reminder of something the world often forgets, that real wealth isn't what you keep. It's what you give, especially when you have little.